everyone, I'm Jessica, here to talk today about a bunch of sort of small solo games with short setup times. So I went through and looked at my collection and picked out a bunch that are mostly in small boxes. There's one slight exception to that here. And these are ones that I know that when I don't have a lot of time, I can just grab them and the setup process is going to be pretty quick. As a note, this means that I didn't include things that can be played with just a deck of cards or print and play games because those are designed to have low setup. These are games that you actually will purchase and then need to set up components, or some of these are decks of cards. We'll get into it though. So first up, I have For Northwood, a solo trick-taking game. As of right now, it is the solo trick-taking game. This is a wonderful and delightful sort of game about actually kind of going through the forest and convincing the animals through trick-taking. You're kind of having conversations with them, and just to show you if you haven't seen what this looks like, there are a bunch of different animal allies or animals that you'll see out in the forest who all have different abilities, and you'll see that there's different suits in here. It's a trick-taking game though, and there are a lot of just delightful sort of artwork, and then it's trick-taking, so you're gonna have a deck like this that you're trying to work through. Playing a one-off game, which is basically just randomizing the components, is very quick. You're just setting it up and you're going, and that's it. But there is also a nice little booklet called The Noisy Year, which actually has a campaign you can play through and set up as well. And that's also something that's quick. Setting that up is quick setup. It sets up a little story to go with it, and it's just fun. And this one is just one of those nice, delightful sorts of games that I like so much that really doesn't require a lot of work in getting it to the table. This is the box. It's one of those nice kind of, there you go. And just put it together and you're done. Or you take it apart and as you start. Up next is Enchanted Plumes, and this is a neat little game that has an unofficial solo mode where you are just creating sort of plumes from peafowl. So there is a, this rulebook always throws me off. It looks like this, it's really nice, but it's a rulebook that actually opens up, which thematically kind of makes sense. You're sort of making what look like pyramids from these different feathers, if you will. So you're gonna have there's a whole deck of them, and there's rules in terms of where you place those and how you do that and how you close out a plume and everything, and there's a random end game trigger. But setting that up is really, it's just cards. So this is mostly just a deck of cards. This one is challenging though. I enjoy trying to either make this enormous plume, and sometimes not sometimes. It has never worked for me. I've come very close to having it work, and I will continue to try to make that work. Usually you have a couple of plumes that you will create during play, but that one is just an easy one, again, for setup, and then the box is this size inside. If I didn't show that, it's basically just one of those inserts that has half the cards on one side, half on the other side, and that's it. So that's all you have to worry about. I think sometimes with setup, with bigger games, if you don't have a useful insert or if you don't have things sorted, that can increase the setup time. So all these ones that I'm talking about have easy setup times. Next, let's go to an older one, but one that I still will pick up and play every now and then, which is Elevenses for One. Now this is an older edition, which also includes Bowling Solitaire. So I think it may come in a different sized box, but even then, this is a pretty small box, and all that's in here are cards. Normally there would be my Bowling Solitaire score sheet, but that is elsewhere because apparently I've been playing Bowling Solitaire. I don't remember. But I'm going to ignore the fact that Bowling Solitaire is in here. I do like these cards, they're cute. But we are only looking at Elevenses for One. All it is you're gonna have a tracker for time, which is not my favorite way of tracking something, where you're basically kind of moving this down and as you tick down time. But that's basically it. And then you're gonna have a tea trolley, and the rest of the cards are gonna be randomized off to the side, and you just have to organize these in order but you need to use the abilities and figure out when you're going to skip over them. It's something that's probably easy to solve in some ways. It's not a challenging sort of game, and even though setup is easy, it can get very long in terms of your row of cards. I just used multiple rows though. That keeps it more compact for me and still easy to play through. It's a nice little one though, and you want to make sure that, who is it, Lady Agatha Smythe is pleased with your service. And I just to picture her just being very judgmental about how you're bringing in everything. But that's again Elevenses for 1. Let's see, up next, what else do we have over here? Let us go through this one, which is Unsurmountable. So this is one of those, if you're familiar with Button Shy, they have a lot of these wallet-sized games where it's basically just a little wallet and inside is where the cards kind of stick in, where the cards live. Find the right word. My vocabulary is unsurmountable today. But basically, this one is all about sort of traveling up a mountain. Where are we here? So you're kind of going to be laying out cards, and they'll have paths that you're trying to connect, but they also have abilities that you can trigger, and there's different challenges that you can kind of take on in terms of adding in either expansions or sort of upping the difficulty level. But that is a fun little one that is kind of that's also, I said Enchanted Plumes was a pyramid. You create an upside down pyramid with the way the plumes work. This one, you create a peak, which is like a pyramid, which is kind of cool and thematic, but that one is also really easy to set up. Just getting some cards out and just diving in to climbing a mountain. Next, we can talk about Songbirds. Also another one that is a little bit older, but this one is just so cute. This is, again, mostly cards, but you're also going to have these little berry tokens that go around the different rows and columns, but you basically just set out an area. Let's grab a couple of those just to show you. You're going to have these nice, thick, they are nice and thick. Where are we here? Why is that upside down? I don't know. But they're going to have different values. So you'll lay these out in a random fashion in rows and columns. I don't think the minus ones, that's what's mixed in here. You don't use the minus ones in solo. But there's other ones. So basically you'll get a whole row and column setup. You're going to kind of create an X using these cards, and these cards are absolutely delightful. That's a scoring one. Let's get to the actual ones in here. Oh, good. My favorite one is the one that I have landed upon. I love the upside down little bird there. But there's going to be ones that these cards are just in different suits and different values. And as you are playing them, you are actually going to have a hand of them, and you're kind of just adding to rows and columns. But you also need to kind of bet on, it's not really a bet, but you're kind of choosing which bird you think is going to win in that row or column, because you'll add up the different values of the suits or the different bird types for who is loudest in the forest, and they will earn that berry token. So if you choose the bluebirds, and they don't win that berry token, that means that's going to be negative points at the end of the game for you. So you have to kind of figure out who you want to actually gain all these tokens, and you actually discard a card of that suit to bet on them. So that's another like interesting little strategic thing. But in terms of setup, that's about it. And I mean, the box is very neat. It just has a spot for those tokens at the top, and then all of the cards just sit right here, and you are all set to go. I also have a couple of the promo cards, which are nice, the owl and the shrike, and they just add a couple of different powers to the game and add some more difficulty, but other strategic thoughts. Very nice, very fun. Then I have Orchard, a 9-card solitaire game. So Orchard is an interesting one in that this is part of a trilogy, sort of. You may be familiar with the other ones in this line, including Grove and Forage. I particularly like Orchard, though. This is my favorite. This is the original. This is the simple version, I will say. And everything that you need is in here. You are going to have a couple of fun little worm tokens. And there are a bunch of dice, which are not used as dice. I'll show you one of those. Those are cute, where they'll have little pips on these sides. But you'll see that one doesn't mean anything. And then there's actually a nice little barrel or basket that's full. Because what these are used for is actually just counting up your score as you overlap cards, and the cards that you use are going to look like this. You basically take all of them, shuffle them together, draw 9, and you're ready to go. And then you're just overlapping them. So you're trying to overlap the same colors, the same types, and as you do so, those dice values will go up and up. If you overlap and they're not matching, that's when that little worm token comes out there and is worth negative points, but it's so cute that sometimes I use it anyway. And that one I like the most out of the trilogy, again, especially for setup, because that's all it is. It's just going through and playing very quickly. And actually, it's a challenging little game. It looks like it's going to be very simple, but figuring out the nuances and having those moments when you actually get to overlap all 6 trees on a card is really fun and exciting to set up, and it doesn't happen that often. Fun times. Another one that I will quickly mention is Herbaceous, and this is the pocket edition. And as a disclaimer, again, I work for Pencil First Games, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I do usually mention it in these because the setup for this is very, very simple. You have a deck of cards, you shuffle it, you're going to be discarding 1, putting 2 in a private garden area, and 2 in a public garden, and then 3 in your private garden. It's really nice artwork. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I work for the company, but I have played this nearly 3,000 times solo. It is very relaxing, very nice, very easy to set up, especially when I am tired and I have no brain power. I get to play this. And the fun part about Herbaceous as well, for me at least, the perfect score is 67 points. I still haven't gotten there. I have come close with 65, and I think I hit 66 one time. You need basically the perfect game to happen, the perfect shuffle, and a couple of other small strategies. Haven't gotten there yet, but I will continue to try because, again, that one's just so easy to get to the table. Next is Hens, and I also have noticed in a lot of these I have chosen many bird-themed games. I like birds, if it's not obvious, and these are also just kind of just nice games to play. And this box top is slightly tighter than it should be, but that's fine. There we go, got it. Hens is about hens. And you're gonna have a deck of cards that's gonna have different types of hens in there with different values. And this one is just kind of laying them out in a coop area. You don't want to have to flip them over to gain a coop. And there's also a little rooster token. You're going to have one of those at the start where you're actually going to place that out and choose one of the suits or hen species, I guess, or breeds, in order to say, I think this is going to be one that scores well at game end, but you don't want to place it on the one that you think is going to score the most. So you're going to have to build around that. And there's that point halfway through where you sort of have to pause for a second and see what you're doing as you're picking up cards and choosing what you want to happen. This one is also, it's very quick, it's very nice, and I'm trying to see if I have... Again, there's not much. I'm not like going through, this is all that's in there. I think you can actually swap out the different hens because you're not going to use all of them every single game. So I like doing that just for a little variety. I get to see something I hadn't seen before. And I wonder what I did with, there's one promo hen that I have never used because I don't know exactly how to use it. And somehow it has made its way into my deck. It's basically the predator bird. And no, I'm not joking. There it is. There's the savage predator. You know, I need to add some rules to add that to my game. because I don't think it was designed for solo. But that one is another nice one that has a little bit more going on, but setting it up and getting it to the table is just really nice. And it's just about having some fun with organizing some chickens in a farmyard. Let's see, we are getting to near the end here. So another one is Captain Flip. And now this one is in a larger box, but this is also, again, a very easy to set up one, just in a larger format. I'm trying to keep it small, but make exceptions. This one is very simple. You are basically going to choose a map to play on. There are multiple maps that are included. They all have different abilities. And this is a 4-player game, or it goes to 4 players, correct? 5 players. Goes to 5 players. So there's not a ton of these. I think there's 4 different ones, but playing solo is very easy. You're gonna have a bunch of coins, because all you're doing in this game is gaining coins. And the main thing that you're doing is there is a bag of tiles in here, as well as the treasure map, but that's another sort of minor thing. You throw that out, you're ready to go. That's what you're doing. And then when you play, you're gonna draw a tile from this bag and you're gonna look at it. I'm gonna see the opposite side, which I shouldn't, but let's say that I drew that and I drew, who is that? Should know this off the top of my head. You are a carpenter. Yes. So that's the carpenter, and there's an ability there that I could choose. But the other thing you can do, so I could put that on my map and I'm done and I'm happy with it. If I don't want that one though, I can take a risk and say, I'm gonna flip that tile over, and then you're forced to take whoever is on that side. And who is this? That is the navigator. So there's a little bit of risk taking there. It's a silly sort of game where there's monkeys and parrots that kind of go on your ship. You can gain bonuses, but setting it up again is so easy, and cleaning it up, you have a bag of tiles. Put away that treasure map, the coins, and you're basically done. It's easy. There's not a lot of components. Because you have that bag and all of those tokens, and because of the size of this, I think that's why the box is a little bit larger, but I'm not too upset. I've seen a lot of boxes that have wasted space, and I don't think this is one of them. I think it's pretty well laid out. When you lay everything flat, that does help. And that, again, is Captain Flip. Just sort of a silly, fun little, not so little box, but little game. And lastly, I have Food Chain Island, which might be the least coziest of the games on this list, because this is about animals eating each other, but in a not terrible way. So again, it's going to be one of those wallet games from Button Shy. So everything fits in here. I have some of the expansions as well. But basically what you'll do is you have all of these different cards, and you can see which animals they will eat, and also the ability that each of them has. So they do something different, and you have to kind of figure out the order that you want to kind of eat the other animals, if you will. But setting this up is basically following a layout. So the standard one, does it have it in here? Yeah, the standard one, you're just gonna have this basic 4x4 grid, and you'll go from there, which works very well. But at a certain point, you might want more of a challenge. So handily, on the back of the rulebook, there are these alternate layouts that you can follow, and that makes it a little more challenging. I've actually found some of these to be really challenging when you figure out that there's spaces open, or that you have to kind of work around that. But again, base setup is basically just shuffling cards and laying them out in one of these patterns, and then you're ready to go, and you can have these animals just have a feast. On Food Chain Island. It really is a nice little game though. I like the artwork. It's kind of quirky and whimsical in a way that's not scary or not over the top, because again, the theme is that polar bear is hungry. Who will he eat? So if I check everything, that looks like I have talked about everything. There's so many other great little box games that have quick setup times. This was kind of a quick list of just some of my favorites that I looked on the shelf and said, yes, 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 these are some of the great ones. I'm sure you have some other ones out there, so feel free to share some of your favorites in the comments. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I hope you get some great, small solo games to your table soon. Thanks again. Bye.